Tonight we tell the story of Peter Barlow.
A two-timing little scumbag.
He's just a man who can't say no.
He's getting sex from 2 women regularly.
He fell in love with 2 girls.
He does love her.
And married them both.
Peter committed bigamy.
We hear from his wives.
He's a mixed-up kid.
His family.
He's a lovable, slimy coward.
His friends.
He hadn't got the heart to break anybody's heart.
And his enemies.
I hate him.
All that I am, I give to you.
He may have promised Shelley everything, but he lost it all when the truth came out. He lost his first wife, Lucy, and their baby son when they left for a new life in Australia. He also lost the real love of his life, Shelley. In fact, he's made such a mess of things, he's just left Weatherfield for good. This is the story of Peter Barlow, the bigamist.
Well, that's him. That's Peter, fine.
Of course, Peter isn't Coronation Street's only bigamist. Remember Arnold Swain? He did the dirty on poor Emily Bishop.
There is another Mrs. Swain. And she's not dead, she's still alive.
And remember Eve Sykes? She took Fred Elliott for better and for a fool. I say a fool!
You're a bigamist. That's a crime, Eve. Damn it, you must know that!
Male bigamists are much more common than female bigamists. The reason for that statistically is that women are worried about children, the effect that it will have on them. Men don't seem to really think when they're going into these multiple relationships, whether it's an affair or bigamy. They think, unfortunately, with other parts of their anatomy.
We know which part that is, and Peter, of course, has forgotten that hell hath no fury like a woman scorned.
He gets sent through the wall of the Rovers, which I think was grand. It's clear the air now. Shelley can move on.
Both Shelley and Lucy had planned the revenge, but Lucy was the wife from hell that truly achieved it.
Get out! Get out of the area!
There's been a change of plan. Well, not really a change on my part, but it's something that I've always had planned, which is that I'm going, but you're not.
Lucy sure got her own back, but where did it all start for Peter? Susan and Peter, the first twins of British TV soap, were delivered in 1968 to proud parents Val and Ken Barlow. 3 years later, their mum died tragically, and they were packed off to Scotland to be raised by their gran. So began an unhappy childhood that affected the rest of Peter's life.
Peter naturally always resented the fact that Ken packed him off to Scotland and left him on his own there.
And they just thought, well, he doesn't love us. Why has he sent us to Scotland? So that had a real effect on him. That's where it started.
And it all started for Chris Gascoigne, the 7th actor to play Peter Barlow, on the live 40th anniversary episode, December 2000.
Hello.
Hello, love.
What's all this then?
He'd been away for such a long time that really we were almost starting with a new character. Nobody really knew what to expect. So we decided he should be quite abrasive, and in many ways the opposite of his dad.
Ken was absolutely delighted when Peter came back.
I'm actually walking down Coronation Street to say, hiya, Dad, to Ken Barlow, with 20 million people watching me. I thought, how did I manage to get into this? But it was wonderful, you know.
Peter!
Hiya, Dad!
My son!
Oh, right, hiya.
Hey, this is wonderful. What are you doing here?
Never mind what I'm doing here. What are you doing here? Hey, Red Ken, they used to call
No, that wasn't me. Listen, you are staying.
If you'll have me.
Peter had left his cheating wife Jessica and his job in the Navy to return to his Weatherfield roots.
When we first saw Peter Barlow, of course, he literally was straight off the boat out of the Navy. Dirt under his fingernails, knuckles scraping the ground. Very Neanderthal, especially in his attitude towards women.
Linda Baldwin was instantly on the receiving end.
No, but you didn't stop me, did you? Well, he is all them things. And I'll tell you something else, love. You two, you were made for each other.
Women sort of always let Peter down. I mean, his mum, not her fault, she got electrocuted by a hairdryer. You know, Deirdre, not exactly a stabilising influence because she was off sleeping with Mike Baldwin and Dev. Susan was the one girl that he sort of loved and, you know, could relate to. His sister, she's dead too. And then Jessica, his ex-wife, he finds her in bed with one of his mates. It's no surprise, really. He came into the street thinking, women, can't trust them.
What are you doing?
Toyah Battersby didn't trust Peter after she discovered him stealing whiskey from the Rovers.
I don't believe this. You've been watering the scotch.
What rubbish.
The anger and the brooding quality and the potential to go somewhere kind of dangerous and difficult was certainly a conscious decision.
Toyah, make sure you keep your gob shut, all right?
This is a man, of course, as well, who was in the frame for Toyah's rape, which, when you look at Peter now, some 3 years on, seems incomprehensible.
We'd like you to come down to the station with us.
I've already been.
And now we'd like you to come again.
He was one of the first people that you point at and say it's his fault. I mean, Les Battersby going, it's got to be Peter that's done it.
Hey, Barlow! I know there's going to attack that, Toyah! You worthless pig! Leave it, Les! Get the truth out, you've got a knockout of you! Les! Les!
I didn't do anything! Tell him, Dougie!
Peter was useful at that stage as a new character and as this abrasive person who we didn't know very well, we didn't understand very well, so he might have been involved in this.
Look, I can't help it if I don't know who attacked me.
Well, you better start working on that memory of yours then. Because you're not the only one round here whose life's been turned upside down.
I said leave it alone!
Or what? I mean it, Toyah. You better start thinking. And you better start thinking fast. Everything pointed towards, you know, him doing it, and I think it was written to get sympathy for the character, to say, actually, you know, he actually was a bit of a hero. Toyah!
He did rescue Toyah at the end.
I mean, that bit when he came in and he rescued her from the attacker and he landed one on him.
Come here! Come here! Don't let me! Please! Please don't let me! Don't let me, please! Please!
That was his turning point, really, that he suddenly became this character that we could sort of, you know, warm to and grow to love.
Thought you might like something to eat and all, seeing as it's dinner time, love.
Well, thanks, Betty. Cheers. After he saved Toyah, got a hot pot on the house from Betty, which was fantastic. That was the highlight of Coronation Street for me.
Oh, and by the way, you can start work again whenever you're ready.
I don't know. 0 to hero, eh?
It was the beginning of his acceptance onto the street.
Now all Peter needed was a good woman in his life, and one had just walked into the Rovers.
What can I get you?
Well, that depends.
Coming next, we uncover the truth behind Peter and Shelley's romance.
She genuinely thinks he loves her. And he does, I think. Just loves other people too.
Who's she?
Not a clue.
Peter Barlow's life was about to change forever. Shelley Unwin became an instant hit in the Rovers and with Peter.
Introduce me.
Oh, yeah, sure. This is Peter, and this is Gina, and this is Shelley.
Charmed, I'm sure.
Shelley's our new barmaid.
Great.
We introduced the character Shelley initially to be a kind of very bubbly, outgoing, classic Corrie barmaid, and she's been that brilliantly.
Perhaps a little too accepting, a little too trusting for her own good, as it turned out.
She's very independent. She's strong and straightforward and trustworthy.
A well-rounded woman in every respect of the word, physically, emotionally, and also she has a degree of vulnerability. So there are many reasons why she represents womanhood in its entirety.
A big ambition is to have her own pub one day, which is better than no ambitions, I suppose. Get us on with everyone. Quite a likeable character, really, are Shelley, isn't she?
And not surprisingly, Peter was attracted to her.
I think he immediately fell for her. You know, I don't know, love at first sight.
She loved it when Peter started chatting her up, you know. I think I said, I think I've got an admirer. And I was all pleased, you know.
Go on then, if I asked you, would you go out with me?
Well, that depends on how you ask me. But I'll give you a clue. I do prefer the direct approach.
I think Peter was definitely on a rocky road before he met Shelley, far rockier than any of the cobbles on Coronation Street. And I think without her, he would have been a lost cause.
She has something about her that is very taming to wild boys. Difficult to say what it is, but the way that a very good nursery school teacher knows how to handle boys intuitively. So there's something about Shelley, not overly maternalistic, but something caring and nurturing about her that I think did seem to levy a calming influence over Peter.
But Peter's past wasn't completely behind him. He needed money for his future with Shelley, but Dougie knew the score.
It'll be a brave man that lends him money.
Oi, that's my boyfriend you're talking about.
Look, love, there's a lot you don't know about Peter Barlow. He's bad news, that lad.
Money wasn't a problem. Peter simply helped himself to the contents of the safe at the betting shop where he worked. His boss, Rob Lucas, had his suspicions.
Hey, you're not accusing me, Rob.
It's not rocket science, is it?
So what did the coppers say?
They're on to it. Go find whoever did it.
Oh, well, I mean, I didn't hear anything. I'd got my hands full all night, if you know what I'm saying.
We better warn your girlfriend, then she'll have to make a statement to the police.
All he had to do was to get Shelley to give him an alibi.
All I'm asking you to say is that you spent last night with me.
Oh, I didn't.
No, I know you didn't, but the coppers aren't going to know that, are they?
So, where were you then?
Well, I left your place and I went home. I don't think he thought for a second that this woman's easy to lie to.
Shelley, please do it.
No. If the truth isn't good enough for you, then you have to get somebody else to lie for you, Peter. I'm sorry.
She basically said, this is dishonest. What you've done's bad. You've got to give him this money back. You've got to sort this out, or I don't want anything to do with you.
She was horrified, and then he went around with a bracelet. And she was so blooming glad she'd got a bracelet, she took him back.
She was like a conscience for him, and it was brilliant. And I think that's when he really started to fall in love with her. And luckily, he got her back. It's just that I've been having a think, that's all.
Thought you looked tired.
Yeah, think about me and you.
Sounds serious.
It is. Why don't you move in with me?
What's brought this on?
Just, will you? Will you move in?
Are you serious?
Yeah, of course I'm serious, yeah.
Well, yeah. You talked me into it. Oh.
In Shelley moved and Peter was made up.
Are you sure?
Yes, I am. I'm 100% absolutely positive. And if you don't believe me, come here and I'll prove it to you.
Hey, hang on a minute. You got to get to work.
No, I'm the boss, remember, and I can pull a sickie whenever I want.
Yeah, but you're short-staffed already, aren't you?
Yeah, but I'm not going to be able to concentrate properly if we've not celebrated your arrival. Now, come on.
Hey, don't worry. You'll have me all to yourself every night from now on.
But it wasn't long before 2 became 3. Not in that way. Enter Kieran McCarthy, Peter's old Navy mate.
Here she is, my one and only, the light of my life. Shelley Unwin. Shell, this is my mate, Kieran McCarthy.
Shelley, good to meet you.
Well, we had this story. It was only a 2-week story. This character came in and tried to break up Peter and Shelley, and it was an old mate from the Navy who, in a sense, if you like, was jealous that his old mate was involved with someone else to the exclusion of him.
Oh, yes. Well, very formal.
I never kissed on the first night. Will you take a drink with us?
Oh, well, I get these on the house.
No, you won't. Don't protest too much, mate. You know, the night is yet young.
2 points of lager, then.
Oh, do you not drink the black stuff?
Oh, I don't even know all the words to Paddy McGinty's coat. I was straight in, I stayed with Peter, I jumped on his missus. I've no idea why. I mean, at the time I was just going, this guy's bad. He's bad news. I think he's grown up a little bit since then.
No more for me, thanks. I'm going to get off to bed.
You might say you're there already. That's my bed you're sitting on.
Yeah, and I'll let you get into it.
But not me own, though. Hey.
Dad, what do you think you're doing?
Something I think you want as much as I do.
I do not.
Peter's flat out in there.
I don't care. Whatever you think's going to happen isn't all right.
Up to you. Is there any woman on the street that Kieran McCarthy wouldn't try it on with? No. Nobody is safe.
Part of it, I think, was jealousy. Can I have what he's got? But another part of it was, I want to drink whiskey with him late at night. What do you mean he's cuddling up with you on the sofa and watching Coronation Street?
I think it's time we stop playing games. Don't you?
Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
It's Shelley, really, who had a little crisis of confidence right early on, didn't she? When the Irish rogue arrived on the street.
Go on, get out!
I'm not going anywhere.
Right. OK. We'll wait till Peter comes back, eh? And he can treat you out himself.
Who do you think you are? You're nothing special. You're just some girl he's with at the moment. I'm his mate. We go back years. If you think he's kicking me out, you're wrong.
Really?
Really? Especially when I tell him that it was you that made the pass at me.
What? And you think he's going to believe that?
He trusts me, you see. Whereas he hasn't trusted any woman since Jessica. He keeps expecting him to do the dirty on him. So when I tell him that you have, it won't come as any surprise, will it?
Kieran doesn't seem to care. He's really quite ruthless, quite threatening at times, and in many ways more unethical and more immoral than Peter.
Actually, it was real sort of sexual blackmail. And it was quite aggressive as well.
When you look at Kieran, of course, who is pretty two-dimensional, there's not much to him at all. He's about as deep as your average puddle.
He didn't realise that these women weren't fair game anymore. Not really. And maybe he was a bit jealous. Maybe he was a bit jealous because he was his best mate. She took his best mate. Peter's changed. He's not on the drink as much. He's saying, I've changed, and Kieran didn't like it.
Well, he'd always looked up to Kieran, admired him for years and years, and I think he just finds it very difficult to accept that his greatest friend should do what he did.
So, he decided that I was some slag who would pull his best mate behind his back in our own home. No, Ken, look, I'm not blaming you for trying, but I'm telling you this. If Peter's upset, then he deserves to be. The way he's treated me, the things he's said. And I'm never going to let him do that again.
You were sitting on the sidelines just waiting for that moment where it would all go pear-shaped.
Time for a grovelling apology. Maybe a big bunch of flowers will do the trick, Peter.
Flipping it, that's all I need. Come on, you stupid thing.
You want me to
Right.
have a try for you?
No.
Oh, ho! Come here. Here.
Thanks.
Right, so now we're open. Can I get some flowers?
Suit yourself.
I think if Peter had got any idea how much Lucy was about to ruin his life, he would have just taken that key and thrown it down the nearest gutter and run.
Well, it's not Valentine's Day, so it must either be a birthday or a guilty conscience.
No, neither. Believe it or not, I just happen to love the woman that I'm buying them for, that's all.
Well, that's the first.
Lucy was this very sort of cool, blonde, very pretty, very in control, and I think a lot of it was just the challenge. You know, can I actually go out with this amazingly beautiful woman? Can I get away with having her and the blonde down the rovers as well? You know, how good am I?
I was thinking about buying her some roses.
Oh, let's at least try being original, shall we? How about something stately? Gladioli, for instance, or these? There's something exotic about lilies. They remind you that life's not all run-of-the-mill. I mean, roses are romantic, but lilies, they're passion. And that's what a woman really wants.
Right, well, I'll bow to your better judgment then. Lilies it is.
And, you know, he's a sailor. It's all this thing, you know, girl in every port or every shop along Weatherfield, whatever's easiest.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like packing in blokes all together.
Ah, no, hey, come on, you don't want to do that. Be a real loss to mankind if you did that, believe me.
If you weren't buying flowers for your beloved, that could sound like a chat-up line.
I think he did fall in love with her, and he was still in love with Shelley.
I did not see this one coming, and that's what's made the storyline so fantastic. I mean, here is this lovely sailor boy going out with this lovely girl behind the bar. They look like they're going to live happily ever after. But oh no.
I think Peter is probably typical of most Weatherfield males in the sense that he thinks he can have his cake and eat it, both slices, and get away with it.
And in his wildest moments, he thought, actually, I can do this. I can keep them both happy.
But he couldn't keep them both happy. Shelley suspected, and there was only one thing for it, a proposal.
And I've been thinking, well, what's the best way I can do it? And then I thought the best way I can do it is by asking you, Shell. Will you marry me?
She made him wait till the next episode to give her answer.
Dad, Deirdre, I'm glad we've caught you.
There's summat up. They won't tell me what.
All right, I'm going to come clean. Shelley here has agreed to make me the happiest man alive. We're going to get married.
I knew it.
Well, that's wonderful news. I'm delighted for you.
Congratulations. Oh, well, that's come out of the blue.
And we wanted you to be the first to know, didn't we?
Look, there's no one I'd rather welcome into the family. Although I feel that you're part of it already.
Oh, thanks, Ken.
Hey, Shell, how's it feel? Knowing these people waiting impatiently for a new generation of Barlows, eh?
Oh, we don't know. There could be one already in the waiting room.
There was a new generation of Barlows waiting. Lucy was expecting, and Tracy broke the news to Peter that he wasn't expecting.
Well, running it to start off with, and then she's going on maternity leave, so it's just going to be me.
Sorry.
Just me running it.
No, what you said before, that she's...
Going on maternity leave, like having a baby. I mean, you must have heard of it.
Right, and this is the woman that's running the flower shop?
Lucy, yeah.
Lucy. Yeah. She's...
Having a baby.
And it is mine, yeah?
Well, whether it is or it isn't,
Oh, come on, look, Lucy. What are we going to do? Go through every able-bodied male between the ages of what shall
It's yours.
Thank you. Good. When he finds out she's pregnant, all the stuff that happened with him and Ken, and there was one thing Peter was never going to do, is do what Ken did to him. And that's what and he acts on a whim. He'll do that, he'll act on a whim. He'll say, That's got to be the right thing to do. Of course I'll marry her, I'll be a good dad, I'll tell Shelley, and we'll be fine.
Peter wants to do the decent thing, but Lucy isn't so sure.
I am the other woman. You're always going to leave me eventually.
I don't want to leave you.
Men always go back to their wives.
She's not my wife, I'm not married.
She may as well be.
No. It's you that I love.
Peter, don't say that. You're lying to me and it hurts.
I'm not. I'm speaking the truth. I love you more than anyone. Marry me.
What?
He's serious, Lucy, but there is the small matter of the engagement to Shelley. Now, with her sister being ill, he just can't find the right time to tell her.
I've got to talk to you, love.
Is it about everything that's been happening?
It is, yeah.
Well, I'm going to put it out of my mind because there is nothing I can do about it.
What? Oh, you're talking about Sharon?
Yeah. I've stopped worrying because she's getting the best treatment and me walking around with a long face, well, he's not helping her and I know it's making you miserable.
And I used to think, oh, but tell her.
Then the inevitable.
What's wrong? What's happened? Is she okay?
She's dead.
Now he really can't tell her.
Lucy and Peter arranged to get married on a particular day. He then discovered that that was the day set for the funeral of Shelley's sister, which is a fairly devastating realisation for Peter. He tried to get out of the funeral. He knew he had to go through with the wedding. He tried to get out of the funeral and then reasonably realised he couldn't get out of it. And then he agonised over whether to tell Shelley, whether to break off the wedding, whether to try and do both. And in the end, the much more difficult, technically, but in a sense easier emotionally, option for Peter was to go to both. He tied himself in knots on that day, but simply because he could not bring himself to give Shelley that devastating news on the day of the funeral. And I suppose, you know, we can kind of sympathise with that. Which of us would have been able to say to Shelley on the day of her sister's funeral, listen, I'm marrying someone else, but goodbye.
Where have you been?
I'm sorry, look, I'm really sorry. Where is she?
In the loo.
Right.
Is this him?
Yes, it is.
I'm not sure we should judge Peter too harshly in the context of the fact that he did actually quit Shelley's sister's funeral. The late Sharon, of course, who we never saw, so no loss. And perhaps Peter felt the same way. I think by that point he'd got himself so deep. And I think he really did believe that he was probably doing the right thing by trying to please everybody all of the time. And, you know, a wake is a wake. Do you know what I mean? And whatever spread they put on, I'd sooner be hearing the bells ringing than tolling.
Yeah, well, you don't have to worry because I'm going to tell Shelley tomorrow, right? And that's for definite. Love, oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, you changed your mind.
I'm sorry. No, not in a million years. I'm sorry, love. I should have rung.
Yeah, why didn't you?
Well, because I didn't need to get here. I couldn't think. It would have held me up even.
This is him then, is it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, look, I'm sorry. I don't even know what happened. I just got it all wrong.
Never mind all that. You can tell her later. Come on, this way, please.
So, the happiest day of Peter and Lucy's life. It wasn't long before Peter was pledging the same vows to poor Shelley.
All that I am, I give to you. All that I have, I share with you.
If only she'd known the truth. As he said, I do, he became Peter Barlow, bigamist of the Weatherfield parish. When we come back, Peter and Lucy, the other woman's story.
He's one of the few pieces of good-looking totty that the street had at the time, so he had to go off with two of them, and what else could he do?
Peter just couldn't have known how buying those flowers would turn his life upside down.
He met Lucy by chance. I mean, ironically, he met Lucy because he stopped off to buy some flowers for Shelley.
That'll be £20, please.
Well, do you know what? I'm sure you'll find a fella very soon who will shower you with them. Cheers.
Doubt it. All the nice blokes have already been snapped up.
Lucy was, I guess, a more thoughtful, quieter, more kind of, if you like, more intellectual character. Though she's an ordinary working woman, you know, she's not the kind of boisterous, busty barmaid. She's got a quieter, I suppose, a more thoughtful side to her. In terms of the casting, we went simply with the actress who felt right in the part, who we felt could give us the kind of range and the danger that the character would need.
We wanted to tell the story of a man who, without ever intending to, ended up married to two women at the same time.
Romantic relationship triangles are great because it's very common that one or two people in the triangle don't know the whole story. They have secrets being kept from them.
Can't believe you're off out tonight when I'm working my socks off.
Yeah, only bowling with the lads, though, love. Oh, by the way, that reminds me. Can you remember that shirt I bought a couple of weeks ago? Have you seen it anywhere?
You're not wearing that for bowling, are you?
No, but, you know, we might hit a casino after, and they're very strict on the dress code there, that's all.
You get about a bit these days, don't you?
Lucy knew about Shelley. Lucy knew that she was the woman on the side. And Peter had no intention of her ever being anything else but that.
So, I was surprised when you came in the other day.
Yeah, I found your card and the flowers, so...
Oh, yeah. Did your girlfriend like them?
Yes, she did. She loved them. Just my way of saying thanks for letting me go away for the weekend.
What, on your own?
Ah, well, we've had a difficult time lately, you know.
He is simply a man that can't say no. He's a man that wants to please women and ends up doing totally the wrong thing by everybody.
He did say, I've got a girlfriend, it's only a drink. Even though, you know, that's dubious how them things work out.
Lucy went out with Peter when she knew he had a girlfriend. So she's the other woman.
Peter, in many ways, has suffered an arrested development. Underneath it all, and certainly underneath his trousers, he is a little boy. And impulses and a lack of impulse control, instant gratification, that's the way that little boys operate. They see something, monkey see, monkey wants, Peter see, Peter wants, he asks, and then he thinks, oh dear, I happen to have a fiancé already. But then buries it and doesn't want to think about the implications. That's what little boys do.
So I'm playing it thinking, a bit tentative, so that's the way the scene's going. And then when I put the drink down to kiss her, she gave me this huge, forceful kiss, almost picked me up. And I'm like, fantastic.
Any regrets?
No, I don't. It's great.
So what's wrong?
Well, it's just that I don't normally do this, you know. I love working with her as well. She does very subtle things, and she really listens to what you're saying. So I was lucky to get two really good actresses.
Peter returned home smelling of lilies.
Not too tired, I hope.
Not too tired for what? I don't know what you mean.
I think you do.
Hey, look, love, let me just grab a quick shower.
No. Don't have a shower. Just come to bed.
Look, come on, look, I've been bowling.
Oh, all right then. Don't be too long.
No, be 2 minutes.
It's going to take more than a shower to clean this up.
Peter.
Yes, love.
I do love you, you know.
We had a conversation with the director that to look in the mirror and do a look as fantastic. I got away with that. Aren't I great and smug and I can do this. This is brilliant. But I remember thinking then, no, he's done the deed, so he'll feel guilty. And he looked at himself and he could hardly look at himself in the mirror. He took his tie off and he felt awfully guilty immediately.
Most men at home would be saying, you know, I wish I could go around a Coronation Street and have a drink with him, because I could sit down and say to him, for God's sake, don't do it.
But what happened from there on was really Peter being taken over by events.
Hey, Shell.
Look, just a quickie. I know you're busy. Are you nearly finished?
Well, I don't know, love. Why?
Well, it's dead in here. And Fred reckons I can make an early dart. Do you fancy going for a curry or something?
Peter is not somebody who always lies and cheats to get what he wants, but he is quite able and willing to do so. To him, when he's up against the wall, the ends justify the means.
Well, you're not such a good liar as I thought you were. Suppose I should be glad. Go on, get your kit on and go.
Nah. Let's have another half an hour, eh? He thought, I'm on top of this and I'm getting away with it.
I would imagine that he thought Lucy, class act, wouldn't mind a little bit of this. And, like most fellas, I suppose, went straight in there and had no idea that he was opening a Pandora/Interflora type box.
It was just exciting for a while to lead a double life. I don't think he ever meant to kind of go as far as he went. But he was enjoying the risky business that he was in for a while. It kind of lit his candle.
You should not burn your candle at both ends. Peter and Shelley were engaged, so something had to give.
I think this is where we say goodbye.
Yeah, that's right. I asked Shell to marry me. And she's been mad enough to say yeah.
There, that was easy enough. Back to domestic bliss with Shelley.
Oh, will you lend me a tenner till later?
Yeah. problem. Here you go.
Cheers, love. You're a doll. Have a lovely night.
OK.
I think he'd got over Lucy, he'd forgotten about her, and he was committing to a future with Shelley. He genuinely thought the affair with Lucy was in the past, and then he discovered she was having his baby.
Marry me.
Here we go again.
What?
When he finds out she's pregnant, all the stuff that happened with him and Ken, and there was one thing Peter was never going to do, is do what Ken did to him.
You marry me. You're the one I want. You know, if I'd have met you first, Shelley would not have stood a chance.
I just played the scenes absolutely straight down the line, that when he was with Shelley, he was with Shelley 100%. When he was with Lucy, he was with Lucy 100%.
She's nothing in comparison to you, Lucy, nothing.
So it's almost like he hops from one parallel universe to another.
And these universes were about to collide with reality in the form of the dark star Tracy.
Peter, what are you doing here? No.
Look, Tracy, this is not what it looks like.
Oh, Peter, for goodness sake.
OK. Yeah, it is what it looks like.
I don't believe this. That scene where I opened the door and I had to say, oh, wow. I mean, what's Shelley going to say about this? I said to the director I felt like I was in Sunset Beach. But in the end, actually, it was OK. It was one of those, you know, it was one of those difficult ones.
Tracy's an evil little cow, isn't she? And I think she actually liked having something over Peter.
Kieran did everything he possibly could to try and stop it.
I think he says to Kieran at some point, I'm back on top.
He spoke to him time and time again, says, get rid of Lucy or get rid of Sally, but make your mind up.
Don't you worry, I've got this under control. Yeah, right, mate.
Peter's problem all along, I think, has been that he's, to an extent, a coward.
Have you told her?
Look, how could I? I'm really sorry your sister's dead, Shelley, and by the way, you don't.
You creep.
What could I do?
You could have not lied to Lucy, that's what.
Look, I'm going to tell Shelley before I marry Lucy, OK?
Yeah, well, you've got a week.
The look on Peter's face said everything, that he just didn't want to upset any women. He didn't want to see women cry.
Don't go, please.
I have to.
I've just buried my sister and you're the man I'm going to marry, and I need you more today than I've ever needed you in my life.
Love.
He said he's going when he told me he wouldn't.
I've got no choice.
Why not? You did have 10 minutes ago.
I didn't. Just trying to keep you happy, Shell.
That's not a bad reason. I'll tell you this. If you go now, I will never, ever forgive you. I will never, ever forgive you for this.
But he did leave Shelley at her sister's funeral, and within the hour had tied the knot with Lucy.
Peter basically thought with his loins, as so many fellas do down Weatherfield Way, and he was all too flattered, and it was all too, tempting for him, the prospect of actually carrying on the Barlow tradition and siring perhaps another son. And I think that's probably why he went down the whole marriage route.
I now pronounce you man and wife. You may kiss the bride.
I don't think he's a consciously evil man. I just think he's a man who's been looking for love, and he found it in two places and then got stuck in it. You know, he got stuck digging and he could never get out of the pit.
Dig yourself out of this. Lucy's just found out he's still seeing Shelley.
Right, I'm going to go round now and I'm going to tell her and you're going to come with me.
I'm not going anywhere
OK,
with
all
you.
right, OK. Well, I'm going to phone her and you're going to listen to what I say.
Get out.
No, I mean it.
And so do I.
Luce,
and don't
please,
come back.
let me just reach
I
out.
mean it. I never
Luce.
want to see you again.
Could things get any worse?
Oh, the old witch. Bev, the old witch.
On a very superficial level, I think obviously Bev could be portrayed as the mother-in-law from hell.
I think it was old Bag originally, but I thought she'd be an old witch was better.
She meddled, as I think any mother might do, given Peter's reputation in the early stages of the relationship.
Mum, you're missing all the fun. Come in now, love. What are you doing?
I'm looking for a phone number I scribbled down this morning.
And you think you might have found that in Peter's wallet?
I'm not stealing, if that's what you think.
This had better be good.
The prospect of Peter living with his wife and his mother-in-law, Bev, would be a very good situation for a man who wanted to engage in masochism, a man who wanted to visit hell and then move in. That's probably how it would have ended up ultimately, and I think not just Peter, but an awful lot of men would have looked at that situation, would have left everything and run a mile.
When Bev first finds out that Peter's had an affair, having tricked Kieran into telling her, she has now got the ammunition, but she has to be very careful.
I'm looking for evidence. Clues.
What?
I'm sorry, love.
But I think Peter's having an affair.
Mother-in-laws can see nonsense when it comes along. Of course, they're not in love with their daughters' fiancés or their daughters' husbands, so they can view those men far more objectively. They can stand back and observe and watch. And also, they're older. They've experienced more. They've had a few hard knocks from men. And Bev is one of those women. You don't mess with her because she can see through you like a moral X-ray.
You're unbelievable. What? You think I'd actually make up something like this? Yeah. I haven't got time for a slanging match now because there's a room full of people there all happy for me. Pity you're not one of them, eh? Ask Kieran. What?
I think Shelley's a bit dopey at times, in the nicest possible way. She is living in a bit of a dream world, and if she hasn't noticed that he's been off with this other woman, then somebody should have given her a bit of a shake.
He says there was somebody. Past tense. All over and done with now, he says. Claims Peter loves you.
Shelley never thought for a second he was lying, but Bev was at the back. So, you know, she'd be getting the pork scratchings down, thinking he's up to something.
Shut your big, fat, stupid, poisonous mouth! Shelley. Shut it!
Bev's not the mother-in-law from hell. She's the mother-in-law that you actually need. I mean, let's face it, if my mum knew that my husband-to-be has been sleeping with a local floozy down at the florist, I'd be gutted if she didn't tell me, to be honest. So she's just seen through him and she's let him have it with both barrels. It's only what he deserves.
You're doing fine. Baby's in position. Do what your body's telling you.
Look, Helen, I mean, is there anything I can do here? Because I'm just stood here.
I think the arrival of the baby in Peter's life was hugely important, and I think that was one of the key turning points in the story. Everything changed for him overnight. And I think there is some truth in the fact that Peter didn't know his own father for so many years and had such a difficult upbringing, and suddenly the thought of him not knowing his own son for the future was unbearable. And I think from that point Peter had to pursue, in the first instance, Simon, but clearly that involved a pursuit of Lucy as well.
Here he is, having a good look around.
Thank you.
Hello. Hey, oh, Lewis, look at him. Look at his little fingers and everything. They got this actual, like, little baby's head that they'd made that was absolutely amazing. I don't think they ever used it in the end. Like a newborn baby's, it looked like something from Aliens.
He's lovely. I think he has a look of his dad.
Yeah? How do you reckon?
Poor lad.
It's all right at the moment. I am married with a child. My fiancé, on the other hand, doesn't know. Why rock the boat? Why do I have to face it? Why can't I simply keep my head in the sand? Everything was fine when it was in the sand. Why do I have to pull it out?
Because sooner or later, Shelley's going to find out. Oops, she has.
Shell, love, what I did, it didn't have anything to do with you.
It had everything to do with me! You went from my bed to another woman's and then back to mine! Don't you dare tell me it had nothing to do with me! I think he was quite scared, actually. Because we did it in rehearsal and he went, right, blimey, here we go. And he just shut up. You would, wouldn't you? If somebody's screaming at you like that with the passion from Satan. Marry you! I can't even bear to look at you! And it's great being able to do that, because working in Coronation Street has got rid of any inhibition I ever had about my acting. Now get out!
Shell.
I said get out now, get out!
Shelley's world absolutely came tumbling down when she realised that Bev had been right all along and that her perfect lover was in fact a two-timing little scumbag. And I think she just wanted everything to be right again. She wanted to put the frock on, she wanted her perfect wedding, and she just wanted to believe him and give him a second chance. And she's one of Weatherfield's walking wounded. She just takes whatever they throw at her.
She spends all her days serving pints to the likes of Les Battersby. She just wanted a bit of glitter and spangle in her life. Frankly, who can blame her? And I think every little girl dreams of being a princess one day, so I'm reliably informed. Some fellas too.
Wife number one and son number one.
I think you better have. Bye.
Oh, and here comes wife number two.
I kept saying, I, Peter Barlow, take you, Lucy Bridge. Oh, sorry. Could you imagine if it had really said that? What? Who's that? Oh, nobody, love. She said, don't matter about that. Nothing, Vicar.
Lucy came looking for Peter to give their marriage another go. Shelley's lovely wedding pictures soon put a stop to any of that.
Lovely. So happy.
Blimey. It wasn't all plain sailing, but I look back now and it was the happiest day of my life.
Would you like to see mine?
Your what?
My wedding album.
My most favourite scene from this whole storyline was the moment in the pub when Lucy produces the picture on the bar and talks about the similarity between their weddings. To me, that was the most gut-wrenching moment. I think you could feel most women across the country going, oh my God, can you just imagine what that must have felt like?
It wasn't such a grand do as yours, but it meant a lot to me at the time. Shelley, love, it looks like we're married to the same man.
Stay with us as the wives get their revenge. That's next.
Married? To Peter? My Peter?
His two wives have met, but for now Peter Barlow is oblivious, enjoying the last moments of ease before he confronts the whole sorry truth.
I purposely made a bit more of the walk from the car to the Rovers. So he thinks everything's great, he's back on top of the situation. So I heightened that a bit to make it so he got somewhere to go when he walked in.
We've all heard the expression, my mother's even said it to me, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned.
Well, here he is, the husband.
He opens the door and his face goes...
And hell hath no fury like two women scorned, particularly when both women know that the other one has been scorned as well, and their peer group knows they've been scorned.
What's happening?
And then you end up with revenge, and someone had better run rather quickly when that happens. Usually the man.
So it's true, is it?
Well,
You married to her?
I suppose I am, as it happens.
And you just think, oh, start talking, boy, you are in so much trouble.
Peter does have these kind of sort of panda eyes, and he looks really doleful, like the dog from the Churchill adverts. He comes in the bar, and if he said to you, would you like to stroke my coat? You would, wouldn't you?
When it came to the actual bigamy, the actual fact that Peter was married to two women, we didn't play that for very long. It was only 7 weeks, in fact. We made a conscious decision. We didn't think we wanted to have Peter married for two women for a year. I think that's the point when people would have said, no, hang on a minute, this story's getting silly, let's get real.
When we read the scripts, when me and Katie got them, she said, oh, blimey, there's going to be like a wreath outside the bookie. So I was like, that's brilliant.
Hey, have you seen this?
Ouch.
Because you can imagine her doing it all night, putting these flowers in all night, can't you? This huge wreath.
From saying it with flowers to the more direct approach, the wives were hell-bent on retribution.
What's all this? Just a little wake-up call for our husband?
In real life, many women do gang up to get revenge if they feel that their husband have been going off and having multiple affairs. Bigamy is slightly different. Normally the wives don't gang up because normally they're competing with their claims against the same man.
Shelley and Lucy had laid claims to Peter's cash. They were determined to make the most of a little retail therapy.
Did I tell you I've got a brand new boots?
No, run it by me again.
2 tops, one for best and one for just strolling around the house,
Lucy's like, we can do this. This is where we're going to get him by his money, and it's all that.
A new dress, one very fab jumper, which will not suit baby sick, and 4 skirts. 4.
Oh, yeah, but they were a bargain.
Yeah, unfortunately.
It's quite devious, really. It's a bit single white female.
Retail therapy hadn't worked. Shelley didn't want to prosecute Peter, and that turned everyone into Lucy's enemy.
Because I'm sick of being pressurised, pulled this way and that.
Well, go on then, stick up for yourself for once in your life.
Peter is extremely lucky to have been let off because given that both of the women felt so hurt by it and it was such a public bigamy, I think that he might have had the book thrown at him and he might have gone inside for at least 6 to 9 months.
I reckon if he had 10 wives, you'd still say, oh, he's not all that bad. You lied to me. Shell, no, you betrayed me. You're as bad as he is.
I'd say the most difficult bit of this story was ending it.
I'll be honest with you, I actually thought it was going to end in a lot more carnage than it did. And by that I mean maybe the odd bunny boiling. Because there was the odd look in Lucy's eyes that had that kind of Glenn Close, I won't be ignored, Peter, kind of a look.
It's really simple, OK? Tomorrow, Simon and I catch a plane. We either do that without you forever, in which case you say bye-bye to your son now, or the whole Barlow family travel together. We head off for a new life. Husband, wife and child. One big happy family.
The nation was gripped. What would Peter do? Even Chris Gascoigne's wife wondered.
She enjoys Coronation Street, and there has been one or two odd looks that she's given me across the settee when I've done something. She's thought, I've seen that look before. And I kind of get up and say, do you want a cup of tea?
Peter has made his decision, and Lucy insists on her final moment of triumph in the Rovers.
What's going on?
Over to you, Peter.
Me and Lucy's decided to give it another go. It's more for Simon than anything.
She really ought to change her name to Shafted, because effectively everyone in the street has shafted her, and not in a good way. Her mother, of course, by sleeping with Kieran. Kieran, of course, by keeping his vow of silence. Sunita, by being aware of the fact that Kieran has kept this vow of silence, but nevertheless standing by her man rather than her best friend. Lucy, of course, it goes without saying, because she set Shelley up at the very end. And Tracy, of course, because she was bridesmaid on the big day.
I sort of did it, I let this animal scream out, because there won't be any words left, would there?
All of that emotion that went on in Shelley's head, from all the people being negative towards her, I think it all came out in that punch.
I'm going, but you're not.
Of course I am.
How? Have you got a ticket?
No, you've...
I haven't. Not for you. No.
So why did you
Why
make
do you
me go?
think? Revenge. Pure and simple revenge.
Lucy, you lose all sympathy from having been, oh, you poor wronged woman. When she flew off to Australia, you think, you cow.
You can't.
Goodbye, Peter.
Chris Gascoigne will be missed, as will Kate Carmichael. I can't tell you how much.
Bye, everyone.
I have to be honest, I had a little kind of a devastating feeling when I knew he was leaving, because he's been a trooper, he's been a fantastic friend, and I miss him terrible, to be honest.
Just a really great guy, he'll be really missed, yeah.
I know you should say that Peter should never get another chance, but I loved him with Shelley, and, you know, I think she's daft enough to take him back. I really do.
They're clearly made for each other. It's not the end. Make no mistake. Oh, it's like Danny and Sandy in Greece. This is just the beginning.
Watch this space. My little pocket boyfriend might be back.
I've had a fantastic 3 years, and not in my wildest dreams did I ever think I'd end up in Coronation Street. It isn't a unique show because I watched it growing up. It's a part of Britain in a way, and I was in it, and I still can't believe it. I'm not Peter Barlow, and I'm completely different, really. My life's nothing like as exciting as his.
Everyone talks about Tricky Dicky. Norman Bates with a briefcase.
He flipped.
He intended to be the best husband ever.
Of course he's a bad man.
He just got a little confused.
The greatest villainous story ever.
He's murdered people.
The deadliest financial advisor there has ever been.
A baddie has to get his comeuppance.
I think he's given them their money's worth, and I've loved being part of it.
His scheming and lying have gripped the nation. For nearly 2 years, the viewers of Coronation Street have been enthralled by the villainous behaviour of Richard Hilman.
No, go away!
We've been desperate to discover what would happen next, who would be his next victim.
No!
But now the street's most evil villain lies in a body bag. His murderous antics are over, and Gail and the kids can start to rebuild their lives.
Thank you.
Tonight, we rewind back to Richard Hilman's arrival on the street and remember some of his most evil and deadly deeds.
I'm gonna kill you.
We'll uncover all the secrets that have catapulted Richard Hilman onto the front pages and hooked millions of extra street viewers.
I named him Tricky Dicky because David didn't quite trust him.
We talked to the rest of the cast about the part they played in Richard's story.
I think he's a bit of a woman, me.
You know the lunatic is there underneath.
We asked the writers, directors and producers how this evil character was conceived.
He's definitely the greatest film Coronation Street's had.
And we go behind the scenes for actor Brian Capron's last weeks playing Tricky Dicky.
That curry, I think, was off.
Richard was envisaged first and foremost as a character who would come in at Alma's funeral, who would gradually build up a rapport that had everybody in the street talking about him. He was all things to all people.
Audrey, did you hear that? You said you wouldn't recognise any of Alma's relatives. Well, he's a cousin.
Oh, really?
Richard Hilman.
Oh, pleased to meet you. I'm Audrey Roberts.
Richard Hilman joined Coronation Street in the summer of 2001.
I met Jay McNaught and the casting director, June, and I read my 7 lines, and they said to me, "Oh, do you mind doing it northern?" So I thought, oh, God.
Can I really, really seriously be wanting to cast this awfully nice teacher from Grange Hill as a serial killer? Is this right?
Maguire?
Sir?
I thought I told you to take that mask off.
I can get it. Funny.
And it was.
It's Mr. Worthington, love.
But it wasn't the first time Brian had acted on the street.
Well, it's a nice home you have here.
Back in the early 80s, he'd been cast as Donald Worthington, a young social worker for Weatherfield Council.
Yes, thank you.
Would you like a cup of tea, Mr. Worthington?
Not just at the moment, Mrs. Fairclough, thanks all the same. We do have rather a lot to get through. Perhaps later, though.
Oh.
They were such fantastic icons, you know, and I remember just walking in there and, like, Bill Roach was there then, and he introduced himself to me, you know, and he said, "I'm Bill Roach," and I kind of went, "Well, I know who you are." Yes, well, you know, very nice to meet you.
Gail, you met Richard?
No, I haven't.
Richard's Alma's cousin. This is my daughter, Gail.
Hi.
Pleased to meet you.
I can't imagine anyone better than Brian Capron to play Richard Hilman, because he combines that oiliness with that sort of smoothness. You know, he's quite a good-looking bloke for his age, and I can't imagine anyone else. Pierce Brosnan maybe, but I think he's a bit too busy.
I was quite pleased with my first day's filming, and when I saw it back, I thought, oh, yeah, that's not bad. Everyone rang me up and said, oh, yes, not bad. You know, it's very difficult in doing your first bit in Coronation Street.
Well, I live in Manchester, but my job takes me all over the country.
Oh, what line of work are you in?
I'm a financial advisor.
We wanted to bring Richard in with just enough of a back history for his character to be feasible and believable. The grieving cousin who turns up at the funeral to console all these lovely women around him and the friends and family of what had been a very popular character. He came in therefore with a sympathetic vote.
Now look, you must call round again and visit us, and I'll find you out a photo of Alma.
I'd like that very much.
Yeah.
Good.
He would seem to be taking an interest in Audrey, and she'd be very flattered by this. But then would be a bit miffed when she found that actually it was her daughter that he was really interested in.
You don't know how it makes me feel, having someone to take care of all those things for me. Mm.
Luckily, I started with Sue Nichols, who I knew from before anyway, and she was absolutely delightful.
And I think we giggled, and it was supposed to be a serious scene. And I'm sure everybody you talk to will say that the one thing Brian has is the capacity to make you giggle. He's very funny.
I think we can do a little better than that.
Listen to this, Gail. Do you know, in my day, if you had any money, you'd just shove it in the post office.
It didn't take long before Richard Hilman had a steady stream of women searching him out for his financial advice.
Richard?
Well, Rita happened to mention that he's a financial consultant.
So he tells me.
Brilliant. Do you think he might give me some advice?
Totally unbelievable, Richard's financial advice. It's just, this man was working out of his kitchen. OK, he had a nice suit, but he didn't have an office. You never saw him talking to any other financial people.
Ah, so you've been talking to Mrs. Bishop. Well, the thing is, Mr. Duckworth...
Jack. Oh, Jack.
The equity release scheme is not really suitable for couples. I'm sorry.
Oh, all right. Worth asking, weren't it? No, I'm done. The mistake he made, I think, he got himself into debt, where he had to get old people to give him money, i.e. Jack and Vera and Emily.
Emily looks pleased with herself. You managed to sort her out?
She wants to release the capital in her house so she can help her nephew out.
So you didn't diddle her out of her life savings, then?
Oh, yes, while I was there. Well, you have to, don't you? I mean, she's a little old lady. I'm a financial advisor. It's compulsory.
I think it's also interesting that he wasn't the most brilliant financial advisor in the world. He made a lot of financial mistakes. He made some very unsound investments, the greatest of which was putting all this money into a property development with a rather shifty building developer, Dougie Ferguson.
Get lost, Dougie. You had a chance and you blew it.
Oh, come on, Richard! Please, we can't leave...
The moment that Dougie fell on that floor and came to his unfortunate demise was an absolute turning point in the character of Richard Hilman. He could have dialed 999 or he could have helped him. He didn't. He dialed 99 and then he stopped. And that's the moment that he came in touch with his dark side.
Straight after the break, Helen and Sue let us into the secrets behind the most glamorous wedding of 2002.
It did end up in OK, which was, I think, the first soap wedding ever.
I'm not sure Roy didn't fall asleep in the reception.
And we ask, does Richard Hilman top the list of classic Corrie killers?
People really do believe that Tricky Dicky is a murderer.
There's nothing like a murder in a soap to catch the headlines. Richard Hilman may not be the first murderer on Coronation Street, but his evil deeds have added to the long list of murders and killings witnessed there over the past 40 years. 1978, and Ernie Bishop was gunned down in a wages snatch.
How's it going?
11 years later, Brian Tilsley was stabbed outside his favourite nightclub. It was 1995, and a fractured skull following an attack ended Samir's short marriage to Deirdre.
God's sake.
Des Barnes left us after being beaten up in late '98. And in September 2000, Jez Quigley was trying to finish off Steve MacDonald. Just 1 month later, Dean Sykes got more than he bargained for at the Better Buy shootout. This at the hands of Curly's future wife, Emma. Richard Hilman may be the new villain on the block, but back in the 80s, Alan Bradley was Corrie's most feared character.
I think Coronation Street has the best villains, but I don't think Richard Hilman's the best villain. I think he's still way, way behind Alan Bradley, because that man was pure evil, and I'm still scared of him now.
Go back, you stupid bitch!
Alan didn't actually have blood on his hands. He didn't kill anybody. Richard has. He's a different sort of villain. Alan Bradley was probably a slightly darker villain than Richard. There's still that sort of slightly pantomime element to Richard. So they're different, and I think just as bad as each other.
Now, you're talking to somebody who's married to the evil Alan Bradley. So what do you think I'm going to say? I think he is a brilliant soap villain, whether it's ever, and I'm not insulting in any way. I think the story is probably the greatest villainous story ever.
Richard Hilman is probably the greatest soap villain of all time. I mean, everybody's talking about it. It's a huge storyline, and we built it over such a long period of time that it's kind of really captured the public's imagination, and, you know, they hate the guy.
In the same way that Rita couldn't resist Alan Bradley's charm, Gail fell under Hilman's magic spell.
Don't think I really want any coffee. We're getting warmer now.
Oh yeah, that's warmer. Much warmer.
We thought very carefully about, let's say, the romantic scenes, trying to make them a little bit different. A lot of care went into them. In fact, I remember over our first kiss, for instance, I actually discussed that with my girlfriend, and I thought, this is going to be a big moment here. And I remember thinking, let's just use a hand to really stroke her hair, to really look at her.
Our Gail doesn't hang about. Before you can say Elsie Tanner, they're off upstairs. What would her mother think?
It was all right while they were going out. I'm not terribly sure she was very happy when they were sleeping together. I don't think that went down very well, did it?
I liked that. I like that. I like Gail leading the way. I don't see why not.
And it wasn't long before Richard was ready to pop the question.
I want you to marry me, Gail.
Yes.
But the producers had another twist in store.
I'd love to marry you.
We decided that Richard needed to kill. We needed a significant step forward in his journey to being a supervillain. And we introduced the character of his ex-wife.
Patricia.
Sorry, I'm not interrupting anything, am I?
We felt that You know, Richard was about money, and he was also about villainy, and he would also become about murder. We wanted to have that murder on screen and have Richard successfully covering her tracks before he got married to Gail, so that we would have a sense that he was one of our long-standing favourite characters, Gail Platt, marrying a murderer.
The problem I had with the particular scene of her death was it stuck out to me like a classic soap moment, and to try and make this work was very difficult. I couldn't see it working because to me it was just a row that led to him hitting someone over the head with a spade.
You're a liar, a cheat. Get off me! Right, that's it. I'm going to get you for this.
For what? Annabelle thought of the spit, and then I thought of him walking away. So we didn't have this classic build and then that. So what we had was a messy kind of row. She nearly fell in, and then he gives up. And he walks away and says, right, I can't stand any more of this. And then she spits. Then we got the moment for the spade. Whack! And then it worked. It worked better than I ever could have imagined.
And you sure Patricia won't turn up again?
100% sure.
So, with Patricia neatly laid under the foundations of the ridings, Richard and Gail tied the knot.
Of any lawful impediment, why I, Richard Charles Hilman, may not be joined in matrimony to Gail Platt.
Yes, well, of course, it was just going to be a wedding, really, and then I suddenly thought, no, just a minute, this is a big wedding. This needs to be more important.
It was the first soap wedding I can remember that was actually sold to OK magazine, so, you know, that caught the public's imagination for a start. But the wedding itself, you know, on the one hand, it was the end of Richard's dream, you know, he got everything he wanted, but then Audrey's sitting there with a bit of a long face. She's starting her conspiracy theories already, so you could see that the dream was about to shatter.
Gail? Weddings in Coronation Street are an absolute pain, really, to do, I have to say. We're usually out for days on end, and filming them are sitting around waiting to be shot or get in the scene or something. No, they're not my most favourite, but I know that at the end of the day, they're the episodes that people love to watch.
I've told her not to call you Granny anymore. It's Mrs. Hillman now.
Suddenly we'd heard that the EastEnders wedding had gone down the tubes. So suddenly we had a little bit more spotlight. We were on all the covers, we were talked about, there were lots of interviews. Helen had this fantastic dress made. I had my Ted Baker suit.
I have to say I didn't like Brian's tie at all. And I have to say that I've not liked his tasted ties all the way through. And if there's one thing I'm glad to see the back of, it's Brian's ties.
I hated his suits and shirts, first of all, but actually they became Richard Hilman, which was extraordinary. And now I kind of love them. Now that's become the character. Because the trouble is your own vanity gets mixed up with the character. And I thought, I wouldn't wear things like that, you know. And then they give me these sort of woolen things, you know, and I thought, oh, I can't wear those, you know. And suddenly they become Richard. So Richard's got this unusual taste in clothes, but that's Richard Hilman.
Brian's very proud of his hair, and it's always perfect and it's always immaculate. So it did cause a few problems when I was supposed to be running my hands through his hair. I had to run my hands through his hair without messing his hair up. Now, this is no mean feat, and I had to practice long and hard, but I managed it in the end.
I always thought it was a wig. I mean, he takes great care over it to preserve it. And, oh, the wind, I can't stop now, you know. I have the same trouble myself, obviously.
Because the cast picked up on that and called me Boofy very early on. Everyone called me Boof. So that was my nickname from then on.
Well, we often called him Granny Crumpet because he is of a certain age. He's well into his 50s.
I don't think I ever told him my favourite pet name for him. Brian, I really can't do it to you. I'm going to keep it a secret forever.
Despite the clothes, the hair and the nicknames, everyone thoroughly enjoyed the wedding. However, Richard's financial misdoings were about to become his own undoing.
There was a Mrs. Lawson whose story we referred to. We never met this character, which was really Richard's first victim, actually. This was the woman he got the building from, which he later turned into the Ridings luxury flat development.
It's Mr. Hillman, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm Tony Lawson.
You were financial advisor to my mother, Anne Lawson.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember.
Good. I was wondering if we could have a word.
Not really, no. I'm on my lunch break, in case you hadn't noticed. Early on, Richard gave him very short shrift. I quite enjoyed that. That was quite good.
You've got some explaining to do, Mr. Hilman.
I don't have to explain anything, least of all to you.
I've just passed my mother's house.
Correction, my house.
There's a planning notice gone up. Now, what the hell's all that about?
I'm having some development work done.
You
Now, before you go off on one again, that house is mine. All legal and above board.
You're not talking to some gullible geriatric now, Hilman. I know what you are. You're a low-life con merchant.
I thought the idea of having a psychopath in the street could possibly be an exaggeration too far. Richard went for a long, long period of time where he didn't do anything. It wasn't a constant thing, his need to kill people or his need for money. He was, for many, many weeks and months, concerned husband and stepfather to the children. But when push came to shove, Richard would do anything to protect his family.
The first of our regular characters who he latched onto with an intention of maybe conning her was Emily Bishop.
Well, first, you must tell me how much you charge for a consultation.
I can recommend to you a whole range of financial options with different companies. Now, should you choose to go with one of those companies, the company concerned will pay my commission. If I can't help you, however, then I'm allowed to take home all the cakes we haven't eaten this afternoon.
And it wasn't only Emily that Richard conned.
The Duckworths went to Richard to ask what to do with their £20,000 life savings. Richard was more than happy to take the money off them because he at that moment needed exactly £20,000 to get himself out of the very deep hole that he got into with the Ridings flat development.
Jack, I knew it. He's a crook.
What are you talking about?
We've given all our money to a petty swindler. He's going to rob us of his life savings.
Have you got my paper?
Yes, look, are you listening to me?
Do I have to, Vera?
Yes, you do. Because Norris has told me all about it. You won't believe what he's been up to with that Emily Bishop.
Calm down, Vera.
I'm going to give that Richard Hilman a piece of my mind.
I think they should have wrote in, before his demise, that our Terry came back. How can you just imagine what our Terry would have done with somebody who'd nicked 20 grand off him?
He's trying to bamboozle us with all this fancy talk.
Look, if it's a statement you want, and I can get you a statement, I won't even charge you. I'll cover the admin myself.
Never mind the statement. We want his money back.
That's not a good idea.
Oh, I Jack Duckworth, aye. He'd say good riddance. Good riddance. Sorry for Gail, though. Sorry about the 20 grand, I know. Because I've got to put up with her now. The rest of our flaming naturals is going to be on my back. So the only thing I've got now is to hope that I'll win on the dogs again. Not a lot of chance, is there?
Listen, Norris told me what you've been up to with poor Emily.
Oh, really? Oh, good old Norris. He can always be relied upon to put in a good word for me, can't he?
Now, Norris has a great sense of protection of his ladies, of Rita and of Emily. So I think that's when I really caught on to him, this equity release for the house, when she was trying to get the money for Spider to buy his juice store and things.
Look, he's trying to pull a fast one, Emily. Mark my words.
Norris, I will not have you interfering like this in my affairs. It's intolerable.
So immediately suspicion kicked in, but because Norris does go on a bit, people have never really taken him seriously, but he's been right all along, you see.
Norris, his nose was twitching, and of course he was absolutely right. So I think that's the first time that Richard had to be quite ruthless with him.
Managed to pull the wool over her eyes, did you? I don't suppose you mentioned Patricia?
I thought to myself, I've got to be very careful with these scenes. I've got to play them, just find the right note to play them on.
You know, you really are becoming rather tiresome.
Oh dear. Touched a nerve somewhere, have we?
Norris, if you've got something to say, then I suggest you say it. And if it concerns impropriety on my part, I'd ask you to say it in a police station with my solicitor present. Well?
I'm not making an accusation as such.
Good. And keep your mouth shut in future.
And there was a real shift in the character when he sort of kidnapped Norris and took him into the flats and tormented him and frightened the living daylights out of him. And I think then the viewer started to realise that there was a little bit more to this man.
You don't look well, Norris. Man of your age, too much strain on your heart.
Oh, I'm fine.
Get in.
Oh.
To get your nerve together on the street when you've got little monologues like that, just to deliver straight, you know, dead-eyed, cool approach, which I decided was right for Richard. No, don't mess with me. They were very important and quite crucial. And also, of course, it led to me getting to know Malcolm better, because when you work with a character, obviously you get to know them much better. And that was the beginning of a wonderful relationship.
What are you waiting for?
Well, why are we here?
Follow me and you find out.
Just exactly where did Dougie die?
That very spot.
I'm not staying here.
No, you don't.
Look,
You cost me money.
You'd be wondering where I am.
You've been spreading lies about me. Now, the least you can do is listen to my side of the story. Now, come on. There's something upstairs I want to show you.
He's terribly good at soliloquies and things, but he's not good at doing business and speaking at the same time. I mean, in fact, he's quite hopeless. To put a key in the door and turn... I mean, that went on for days. And there's no point in getting ratty with him, because he's a nice guy and he doesn't mean it, you know.
Brian, bless him, totally professional actor, gets bit by props. And he had a touch case, that bit him every time he opened it. And it was hilarious. And of course I had nothing to do with it. I stayed away from the damn thing, you know.
Brian may have had problems with those difficult props. His producer, however, believed Brian had no problems at all with the Richard character.
Of course I am.
I think Brian has done an extraordinary job. I think he's played a villain. He's done all the kind of Machiavellian scheming darkness of the villain that we could possibly want. At the same time, he's brought an enormous humanity to the character. He's made him even sympathetic. He's worked very hard on the whole side of Richard Hilman that's about love and relationships and fidelity and family. He's brought all that beautifully to life, and yet never sacrificed the edge that he's given Richard Hilman, which makes the character at the same time as sympathetic, understandable, also truly scary.
Be ready to be truly scared, as in a few moments we revisit all of Richard's murderous moments.
Get out!
Scream and scream again as Audrey finally flips.
Get out!
Come behind the scenes to see Richard confess all to Gail. And we discover Brian Capron's favourite Richard Hilman line of all time.
I've heard that line so many times.
Coming up, the behind-the-scenes story of Maxine's murder.
Hi, Emily.
And Sue Nichols tells us how she drew on her real-life experiences to play Audrey's nightmare.
Oh, just go away!
When it was first suggested to me that I was going to actually try and convince Audrey that she had Alzheimer's, I thought this was a bit of a non-starter, you know. I thought, oh, that sounds really boring, because I've been killing people, you know. I've got to do something dramatic. That's not very dramatic. And of course, I was completely and utterly wrong yet again, because this was such a fascinating storyline with so many twists and turns. I never could have anticipated how exciting it was. And of course, you know, working with Sue, which is absolutely terrific, and also Roy Hudd coming on board as well, subsequently, which has led to some of the most interesting and dramatic scenes that I was involved in, certainly.
I knew I had to talk to Sue Nichols. This is a very big story for the actress, a very demanding story, and in certain senses a very difficult story. And I outlined what we were planning to do, and Sue thought it was terrific. There were certain points of the story as we went through it where Sue talked to us about particular ways she should play things, or about particular references we had in the script. We needed to strike a balance between it being a very engaging, very exciting thriller story, and yet a reasonably serious attempt to look at the emotional impact on Audrey, and indeed on Audrey's family, of someone who genuinely thought they were losing their mind.
It wasn't an easy story for Sue to play. She'd had real-life experience of living with dementia. Her mother suffered from the illness.
Oh, you're trying to tell me I'm senile, aren't you?
If you're an actor, you're going to have to portray things that aren't particularly very savoury, and you want to do it as best you can. The sad thing is, yes, I had experience of it. That's the sad part of it. But in many respects, I had a clearer insight than maybe other people.
We just want to keep you safe.
That's all we care about, Audrey.
I mean, there was a lot of tears. The dementia was one. Thinking she'd gone dementia, remember she hadn't, so it was that. So it wasn't quite, I wasn't playing dementia because I hadn't gone dementia, but one had to give that impression, otherwise the storyline wouldn't have worked.
Just the fact that it drives a wedge between Gail and Audrey is fantastic. And you thought, how do they ever get out of that one? But of course you always can get out of anything in soap opera.
The great thing about The Street is they don't tell you how the story is going to develop, which I think makes for great performances, because it's what you would be like in real life. You wouldn't have any knowledge of what was going to happen in the future, so you play the scene for the worth it is at that particular moment. That's the great joy of Coronation Street to me. None of us know what's going to happen next.
I felt so sorry for Sue, because there was a very dramatic episode where there were only 4 of us in it, and she had to completely lose her rag. Completely and utterly. And of course, as always with film, could we just do it as a normal scene with Sue there looking at me and Roy? No. Roy and I had to mime because we weren't allowed to speak. And she had the height of her mad fit and rant. She had to do all this to Roy and I, just acting it out, just for her to look at something. And how she did it, I don't know.
No!
I'm sorry about this. Now, Audrey,
Get away from me! Just get out!
calm down. You're scaring her. I'm not going to hurt you. Richard, now back off now. You're making things worse. She's just confused. Look, you're terrifying the poor woman. She needs to be terrified. Look, let's talk outside, okay? You don't believe in this, do you? Get out! Don't worry, Audrey. It'll be all right. I'll just have a word with him, then I'll send him on his way. Now, don't do anything silly. I think my favourite scene in the whole 14 months I've been in the street, 15 months, was the scene when Hilman pursued her and chased her back to my house. And then I had to sort of come between and defend my bird. I love that. That was great stuff. Cup of tea and sit down. That's what you need.
He's after my money. He tried to kill me.
Yes. Come on, and sit down. Don't worry, she'll be fine.
He wants to kill me. I know he does.
When I embarked on the Audrey storyline, it really surprised me how many twists and turns there were in it. And also, of course, we had situations whereby I was creeping into a house, this nasty person. And we had this marvellous episode where I was stuck in the cupboard, which of course turned out to be very humorous. So it was almost a farce.
Outside by the sink. Okay, you sit down.
So it was the effect that this storyline had on the characters. We had chases. I tried to catch a place on fire, but failed to kill her because she's hopeless at murdering people, really. And then the fact that she knows, and that she knows I know she knows. I mean, that's how daring the scriptwriters were. And of course, the whole thing took on a different level, you know, and people have often commented on the fact it's not just Richard Hilman, it's what effect that Richard Hilman has on other characters. And of course, that's very salient as regards Audrey, because nobody ever believed that this would all happen to Audrey, which is fantastic. Driving her into the arms of Roy Hutt.
The scenes I've played with Audrey are the best scenes I've had to do. Point one, Sue Nichols, who plays Audrey, is probably one of the best actresses in the country. When you look into her eyes, you see the truth. She's a great con woman, like Hilman. No, she's a terrific actress, and I think the scenes I had to play with Audrey were terrific, only on a par with the scenes I had to play with Richard Hilman himself, which were terrifically well written and very sort of I don't know, juicy sort of stuff to do, and me slinging him out of my house and all this stuff. And when I finally did believe Audrey and having to get rid of him, it was terrific stuff. I thoroughly enjoyed it, yeah.
So Richard was well on the way to making Audrey believe she was crazy. But he still needed loads of money. Enter Emily.
I had these lovely scenes with Eileen where I had to try and snuff her out, or work. Richard has to work himself up to try and snuff her out. And of course, he's so duplicitous the way he gets in. I mean, really, it's awful what he does to Emily. I mean, that's one of the worst things I think that I've had to contend with. And Eileen's so lovely, you know. And it was quite good because also the director I think it was Tim Dowd, made me sit next to her, which I thought was a great touch, to sit down next to her. And then say, do you want, I'll get you a drink. Don't worry now, don't you worry about anything. And then she's nodding off. And then just as she's falling asleep, I lean across and I just pick up the sherry glass from her. And I always imagine we're in a 1930s melodrama in the West End at that moment. It's what it all seemed like. And even with the cushion, you know, this kind of thing. Suddenly we were thrown, I felt as though we were in some old 1930s play.
Although the big part of the Richard Hilman story on Christmas Day was his attempts to murder Emily, which were obviously foiled in the nick of time by Rita, the other thing we wanted to show on Christmas Day was Richard Hilman, the family man, because the story's always developed with two main elements in parallel: Richard the killer and Richard the family man, the man who really loves Gail and really loves her family and has taken them to his heart. And I think it's the two aspects of the story together that have made Richard Hilman such an interesting, complex and ultimately believable villain. So on Christmas Day, we made sure we saw Richard and the family enjoying a family Christmas, even at the same time as he was considering bumping off the little old lady across the road.
Hello.
Oh. Hello, Rita. I just called in.
Yes. Oh dear, I must have dropped off again. How are you feeling, Emily? Tired, but otherwise surviving.
There was a great line at the end of that episode as well, where Gail comes up to Richard and says, "Oh, how is she?" or something. And I go, "She's not long for this world." And she goes,
"No?"
And he goes, "No."
We were developing the next major stage of the Richard Hilman story, which would involve another murder. We knew we wanted that. We wanted something that would make a big splash, would really grip the viewers. At the same time, Tracy Shaw was talking to me about her plans to leave Coronation Street, sadly. She's been a fantastic character on the programme, a hugely popular actress, but I knew she wanted to leave and pursue other things. The big question for me about Maxine's exit was, how could this character go and be well loved and well remembered after she'd gone? I think if the character had walked out on Ashley, had had an affair, had left Ashley pining, I think people would have looked back at Maxine and thought she was a rat cow and not liked her anymore. And I genuinely didn't want that to happen. So while we were planning this murder story, it did occur to me that the only way Maxine could ever leave Ashley and be fondly remembered was if she was tragically taken away from him. And when I put that thought together with the developing Richard Hilman story, it started to feel like the perfect opportunity to, no pun intended, kill two birds with one stone.
My absolute favourite Hilman moment was when he was killing Maxine, and she walked in and he's standing there with a crowbar and Maxine says, "Richard,
what the hell are you doing?"
I mean, it's pretty obvious what he's doing.
Anyway, I think I had one of the best lines that Richard ever had, when she goes, "Richard," and he says,
"You should have stayed at the party, Maxine."
Brian's favourite line of all time. Again, I wasn't in the scene, but it was, "You should have stayed at the party, Maxine."
Because I wanted to do it like, "You should have stayed at the party, Maxine." You know, because it was a great line to have.
He certainly has brought the look behind you factor to Coronation Street, and I think that look behind you factor is what's drawn us all to it. If we're all honest, look behind you, Emily, look behind you, Maxine, look behind you, everybody, is what's been so joyous and has been so much part of what the street does best.
And the worst bit, I think, just moving up behind Emily, bless her heart. And of course, for those moments as you're going up, I'm a psycho at that point, and I'm going up behind her. And then, of course, in reality, Eileen was there. She just moved to the side, and I just kind of whacked the back of the settee. Well, that was a horrible thing to do. I mean, hit an old lady with a crowbar. You can't do much worse than that. But thank goodness her hairspray was strong enough to protect her.
A record audience of 17.5 million viewers tuned into the episode.
When I saw the ratings for the episode in which Richard killed Maxine, I was very, very proud. It's lovely to know that so many people in the country are watching what you're doing, have been gripped by a story. And it was lovely to turn the tables on everything, to have the critics unable to say anything other than that we were doing fantastically well. This was a great story, we told it very well, it was grippingly done, and also to see EastEnders languishing in the ratings.
After Maxine's murder, Richard returns home to play Happy Families once again, Gail still blissfully ignorant of his evil antics.
A lot of people, have said and have written into us and whatever, have said, is Gail simply the stupidest woman in the United Kingdom?
Everyone says that Gail should have known he was a villain, but if you look at the people that Gail's hung out with in the past, then, she's not that good at catching on, really.
I don't know if she maybe might have believed her mum a little bit more, or at least tried to work out why her mum was saying what she was, because it was her mum that was saying this, it wasn't just some passing stranger in the street. I don't think she was stupid, I think she was maybe foolish.
The viewers had seen him do it. Of course they knew he was a murderer, but Gail hadn't seen him. And I didn't find it hard to go with the story at all, that she had no idea. I think perhaps it was time for her to find out.
Richard didn't buy that bracelet. I found it on the site when we were building the flats. And Richard, the cheeky beggar, said, I know who that belongs to. It was the woman that came round to see the flats early. I'll make sure she gets it. Next thing, Gail's got it on her wrist. Shut up, I'm telling you. Tells lies for England, that bloke.
Finally, the penny dropped. Gail was cottoning on to Richard's villainy at last. The producer was planning to give the two of them an entire episode for Richard to confess all.
Yes, it was me.
In the entire history of soap opera, there have been very few episodes that are two-handers. We've made a two-hander. It's almost entirely Richard and Gail. We do cut away to the children asleep for a couple of scenes, but I think anyone would view that as a pure two-hander.
It was an enormous challenge to do it. I absolutely loved it. And of course, when I saw the sheer amount of words that I had to try and get in my head, I felt sick. I opened the script and I felt sick. I thought, how am I ever going to get on top of this? Because you feel very excited, first of all, and then you just think, I just don't know how I'm going to do this. And I worried about it for days and days, which actors always worry about anything, but I really did worry about it.
I can't stand what I'm starting to think. Please, tell me the truth.
I always tell the truth, Gail.
You didn't kill Maxine, did you? Did you?
I won't lie to you, Gail. Perhaps this is all for the best. Yes. It was me. I thought, oh my God, that doesn't sound like him at all, But that was a surprise, but that's absolutely right. And then, of course, I think it's fantastic that they had this wonderful episode where he just spills. He tries to be devious at first. He says he did do the murders, but it's an accident.
You say that. You say what you've just said and expect a shoulder to cry on. Then what do you expect?
I just wanted to understand.
How can I understand you? Stupid,
Let me
evil, lying! She was a young mother, a whole life ahead.
It was an accident!
How could it be an accident? She was hit over the head with a crowbar.
I think it's an extraordinary episode of Coronation Street. I think it's an extraordinary piece of television in anybody's books, in any genre.
The ratings have been fantastic. They've been consistently rising throughout this storyline. We had 17.5 million watched him kill Maxine, and we were really excited about the two-hander confession night, because I think that's what people wanted to watch as much as anything the moment that Gail found out. And we were proved right, because 19.4 million was the peak for that episode, which to get nearly 20 million is absolutely fantastic, and we were thrilled. So goodness knows what is going to have happened after tonight's episode. I think the national grid will have gone into meltdown.
Good work. Only another
50 pages to go.
After the break, the final moments of Richard Hilman.
It's nice and warm in there, mate. It's all right now.
With exclusive behind-the-scenes footage of how that stunt was staged. Unique underwater shots of the Hilmans as they were rescued from the canal. And how Brian's all-important hair was held in place for his final close-up.
What's happened to his hair?
is it! The final curtain call for the Hilman family. The street has splashed out on a Hollywood send-off for Brian. You and me, always and forever. Yeah, the end of the road. And what does Brian think about coming to the end of the street?
My last scene or scenes were very difficult because you've got these two things pulling at you. You know that it's the end. It really is the end.
I'm staying around next week, although I've finished this week, and I will be having a goodbye party.
I've seen so many characters myself finish, and we all gather behind the set, you know, we give them a little presents and a little goodbye speech and that kind of thing. And you've done it to see so many others go, and then it's your turn suddenly, and you're there. And I think it's very emotional. It's a very emotional thing because actually you haven't realised how much it's meant to you till that time happens.
My last words are, I will only worry.
There you are. It's been absolutely fantastic.
I'll be glad when this is over.
Oh, this will be completely painless. You won't feel it.
Leaving with such a splash calls for careful planning. Veteran street director Tim Dowd was given the job.
Unfortunately, the canal that was best suited for filming it wasn't deep enough. So what we've had to do is fire a car in. It'll sink up to its roof, but the roof will still be exposed. So what we then had to do was buy another Ford Galaxy and cut the roof off it so that we could do a separate shot, just putting the roof in the water and seeing that disappear. When we do the underwater sequence, we want to drop the bottom of a car onto the surface of the water, which would give the impression of an underwater shot of the car hitting the water. So I think in all we've had to buy 5 Ford Galaxies.
Even I think that the ending is so exciting, and I'm so pleased for Brian that they've done all this for him. You know, it's for him. They gave him this ending.
It's silly to have a great big, you know, feature film type stunt, you know, with everything going, because that's not Coronation Street. So it wants a kind of a dirty ending, you know, and you know, it's quite, I mean, it's muddy, watery, dirty, you know, within the terms of a Manchester canal, which is absolutely right, but it's carried out to perfection by the professionals who do it.
It wasn't that cold. I mean, you can feel the water trickling down your back and stuff, but apart from that, it's not too bad.
Did you have a hot shower before you went in?
Yeah, hot shower certainly goes very cold, though, in this weather, which is why hot water's really cold.
The car splash was only the beginning. There had to be lots of close-ups of everyone escaping from the car. Just before filming, Helen Worth dropped a bombshell.
I can't swim. I'm sorry. I can't swim. So I said, well, I better have swimming lessons. I ended up having, I think it was 4 or 5 lessons with Chris, who was so kind and so gentle. But she had me swimming through hoops underwater because we thought I might have to go through the window. And she had me coming up from the bottom. And I lay on top of the water in case I had to play dead. I did all that.
So, with the swimming sorted, the director started to work out how to capture it all on film.
We had to find a tank that we could do this sequence in. The sequence itself underwater isn't that long, but because of the nature of what we're trying to do, it's going to take us 2 days to shoot it.
People are ready to go.
With it being so difficult to communicate underwater, Tim used a storyboard to show the crew what shots were needed.
So that when we're at the tank, we'll just be able to hold up the relevant picture, everybody can gather around it, and we can say, that's what we're going to do now.
Everyone seemed to enjoy their time in the tank, but Helen Worth felt that the toughest part was being trapped in the car with Brian.
The garage was very, very small, and so we had to be backed into the garage inside the car. And once we were in the garage, we couldn't get out because we couldn't open the doors.
Me and Jack, we didn't actually have anything to say, but we were bound and gagged for the entire day with our hands strapped to our knees. So it did get a bit tiring, and the gags that we had in our mouths, after about 10-15 minutes, they were quite gross. Tina, have you back, please?
I was actually captured for, must have been a couple of hours, hearing Brian's jokes yet again. The children hadn't heard them, you see, but I'd heard them by then 3 or 4 times already.
He keeps asking me for new stories, and she's
So, with filming almost complete, what next for Brian Caplan?
course, this is a terrible question for actors because they immediately go into, well, there's a lot of things in the pipeline, or I'm looking through a lot of scripts at the moment. Well, I am looking through a lot of scripts at the moment. Well, a few scripts. Well, a couple. Well, one. In fact, I'm looking at any.
Well, Brian's career could go two ways. He could either just disappear completely, which is what happened to Mark Eden, who played Alan Bradley, or, you know, he could get a really good role playing a killer or even a copy. You never know.
I'm trying to avoid the bill and Holby City.
He could go on into a comedy. He could hold his own series, I'm sure, for ITV. And we really, really hope. I know that he's got auditions for films and all sorts. So it certainly isn't the last we've seen of Brian Capron.
Well, it's because it's a...
Richard Hilman's last scene on the street, beautifully framed in a body bag.
The frightening thing is not long to go till I will be in one.
Will he be missed by the rest of the cast?
He's such good fun to work with, and I mean, who would have believed it? That nice teacher in Grange Hill would have turned out to be this horrible financial advisor.
Good luck, Brian. We'll miss you, and we know you'll do really well.
He's sent up rotten by most people on and off screen because he's a fusspot. He's the fussiest pot I've ever met.
It's all of you. Look just like Frankenstein.
And even in death, Brian was still fussing about that hair.
What's happened to his hair?
I mustn't be selfish and I mustn't say I want him to come back because I know he's going, I just know he's going on to great things, and I really do wish you all the best, Brian.
Never mind, you needn't look at this shot, Brian.
Brian's brought an enormous amount to the role of Richard Hilman. I think he's played the character fantastically well. He happens to be the great screen villain that he is. And at times, Brian's done the tremendously difficult job of making us, at times, almost feel sorry for Richard Hilman.
I mean, all you ask as an actor is to be able to have the opportunity to act. And that's what Coronation Street has given me. To be humorous, to be warm, to be loving, to be a completely ruthless villain. Cold, calculated. All those dramatic things that actors love to do.
I'm finished.
Finished? Is that it?
Yeah, yeah.
We've laughed with him, we've cried with him. It's been wonderful.